Susan Mwangi.
Now, the cost of power has exponentially gone up in recent days. Our reporter Jasmine Murani spoke to KenGen's acting CEO, Abraham Serem, to seek answers on what the country's largest power generator is doing to see the cost of power plummet. Here is the report.
Cost of power has become a central feature in the discussion of the cost of living. But according to KenGen's acting CEO, Mr. Abraham Serem, KenGen's cheap power has actually helped to maintain relatively low prices of electricity.
We are an old power generating company, and much of our generating assets were hydro. Many of those hydropower plants are very old, and therefore depreciation has gone really very low. And as a result of that, the consumers are getting the benefits of that. And from a hydro power stations, actually the cost of power is very, very low. And that's what is helping the country generally. From geothermal perspective, geothermal is also a cheap source of power, so to speak. KenGen is privileged to have access to concessional funding through the help of government. And therefore, the cost of our loans is not very high. That then speaks to the cost of construction of our power plants and all that. And as a result of that, of course, the cost of power that we sell to the grid is reasonably low.
According to Serem, the power purchase agreements between KenGen and Kenya Power ought to have run longer.
The oldest power plant in KenGen today in geothermal, we are producing 45 megawatts, and an assessment of the steam in that power plant that was feeding that power plant shows that the wells are still very, very strong. They are still producing at the right pressures that we require, and that is 25 years later. It means then the PPA for that power plant may not necessarily have been capped at 25 years. It could have been 30 years or 35 years. And the spread of that cost would speak to a low cost of power. So I think ingenuity around the PPAs could be brought on board.
But at just how much does KenGen sell a unit of power to Kenya Power?
On average, it is 5 shillings. But of course, it is different for the very different generation modes. Hydro is very, very cheap. I think it's about 2 shillings. You go to geothermal, it's between 6.5 to 7 shillings. And then, of course, for the thermals, actually the offender in the thermal power generation is the cost of fuel. So I mean, it's a mixed grade, but for us, it's about 5 shillings.
How then does an average of 5 shillings per unit jump to above 30 shillings per unit?
I may not be competent to comment on that. I think that is the province of the regulator. But I think when Kenya Power are costing their power, it looks at the entire ecosystem of the generators. It's a combination of power that is supplied by KenGen, and it's a combination of power also supplied by the independent producers. So I think they do the average, and I think through some formula that they use, they come up with a certain number.
KenGen has repeatedly said that given its steam resource, it has the capacity to generate more than 10,000 megawatts of affordable renewable power, up from about 1,000 megawatts. So what bottlenecks stand in the way of KenGen realizing this power?
The issue, of course, comes the cost. The cost of drilling is very, very high, and therefore you have to do drilling before you build a power plant, for example, and it takes a bit of time. Geothermal is a base load, and we have it in plenty. We don't have many hydro sites in the country today. I think there are a couple of areas where you can easily do a hydropower station in the country, but the one that is readily available is geothermal, and if we continue investing in geothermal, drilling more wells, building more plants, then the average cost as a result of growth in consumption will bring down the cost of power. That's what I meant. So I think the focus for us is that we have a geothermal strategy saying that what we need to do is access more geothermal sites, probably drill, bring in power plants, and with time, obviously, the cost of power will reduce. If you look at the total amount of installed capacity that we have in the country, it's quite small compared with other countries. We are talking of over 3,000 megawatts, and And 3,000 megawatts compared with some of the cities in Europe. Barcelona, for example, I'm told consumes 5,000 megawatts. So there's a lot of room to invest in power generation, and I believe that will happen as the economy grows. I think there's a lot of activity now in the country, around the country. And as a result of that, and if that power would be from geothermal sources, then you can see the levelized cost will reduce. It will bring down the cost of power. So we are suffering now because our base of power generation is so small because of the consumption, but I believe there's an opportunity for it to increase. When it increases and you access cheap sources to produce electricity, I see the cost coming down.
Additionally, revenue streams for KenGen might be stifled by a debt of about 23 billion owed by its number one customer, KPLC.
We're in the same sector and we understand what they are going through. These are our colleagues that we hold meetings, we meet and so forth and so on, but they are trying. They've been paying us what they promised. They've not cleared it, but they've been paying us. We have a repayment plan, which they have lived to the letter. They have actually paid what they promised. In fact, the last 2 months, I think they've even accelerated a little bit more. So we are really grateful for that we see an effort from their side to clear the outstanding facility, and we want to encourage them to continue doing that, and I believe with time they'll be able to clear. But it is something we wish it could be solved as soon as possible, because that's our money. We need to use it, we need to invest it.
We also sought to find out how much of the electricity we consume is produced by KenGen.
We are in the region of 62%, but then again, so that's the market share. But in terms of what goes to the grid, it differs. Because again, you may have an independent power producer who is going through annual maintenance, and they are not able to produce what they normally produce. So KenGen, when our assets are available, then what we have is taken up.
KenGen produces a lot more, about 1,904 megawatts when fully operational. This is where the energy park set to be built in Olkaria comes in.
We had a very, very comprehensive feasibility study in Olkaria, in the energy park, and that report is now ready. And we have sown the energy park into different parts. We have the heavy industries, steel industries, we have steam heavy industries, we have small industries, we have offices and other places. So that framework has been put in place. It exists, we have the report with us, we are happy with it. Now, what are the next steps? The next steps is for us now to get it gazetted to be an industrial park and a special economic zone. An economic zone comes with certain benefits, which is an incentive to any investor. And as a result of that, now we're moving to the next step of ensuring that we got requisite licenses by county government, national government, and all that. Recently, you may have seen in the press, we did publish expression of interest, basically sounding the market to say, hey, we are here. You do want to work with us? We have a facility that is available, and we are waiting to see the results of that. There are people who have made inquiries, verbal phone inquiries. Some have even come and wanted to see the site. So there's a lot of interest. There is a lot of interest happening.
The feasibility studies may be complete, but the Auditor General noted in the last financial year that KenGen is yet to implement certain expensive feasibility studies into capital projects 5 to 10 years after completion.
Feasibility studies is a requirement. If you have any project that you want to do, you must carry out feasibility studies. The feasibility studies will inform a number of things: the level of investment, environmental issues, whether it makes business sense to do it, and so forth and so on. So you must do it. As you do the feasibility studies, there are certain things that you must also do upstream to ensure that you access. For example, if it is a wind site, and you've done the feasibility study, you are sure that you'll have the resource and all that. But when you go to the site, you have an issue with the community to say, hey, maybe all of us were not involved, we need to discuss a little bit more. So it's an ongoing conversation that may not enable you to utilize the results of your feasibility study. But the intention was very good, very normal. You do it because you're sure something is coming on our way, we will do it, it will be successful, there will be no issues. But if those issues come on your way, then you have to stop and re-strategize. And I think some of the feasibility studies can still be used if some of the things that blocked what we wanted to do are dealt with. So those are some of the things that we talk about. Look at the example of Sondumerio. There were issues by the environmentalists and the non-governmental organizations. It delayed that project for 10 years. There was a feasibility study done, but it could not be done because there were certain issues that people needed to be sorted out. So it can take long, because these are huge projects. These are really huge projects involving a lot of money. And we cannot progress without a feasibility study.
In the geothermal sector, Kenya is a market leader. We sit at position 6 globally, a phenomenon that would explain KenGen's venture beyond the country.
Indeed, Kenya and KenGen, of course, has pioneered that drilling and doing studies outside the country. We started with Ethiopia for drilling, and then we are in Djibouti as well. But as we do that, we are also receiving a number of requests from a number of countries. Some have asked us to express interest in drilling and doing some studies in Tanzania and many other countries. So based on the skill development and capacity that we've developed over the years, I can confirm that we are available to offer those. Of course, subject to our maximum capacity in terms of availability, because we have operations to run here in Kenya. So we'll continue doing that, and this was very deliberate. I think the fact that we have a trained resource with all the competencies required in actually end-to-end. I think for KenGen, we do it end-to-end. We do exploration, we do geoscientific studies, we drill, we build power plants, and we run power plants. So we actually have a skill set that is able to do that entire ecosystem. And very few companies have got such kind of capability. And by the way, as we do this, we work with a number of financiers, we work with a number of contractors, and many other people, and you will have seen the amount of interest that people have in Olkaria. They have a lot of interest in Olkaria because of what has happened in Olkaria. And as a result of that, we start getting those inquiries. Anybody who wants to do something will say, by the way, speak to KenGen. They may be having this capability. And much of the work that we've done has been actually by reference by others to say, by the way, don't struggle. Just walk across the border, and KenGen are available. They'll be able to do for you.
Jasmine Murani for KTN News.
All right, we take a short break. We'll be back with more. Don't go.